Which home is programmed in your GPS? I stared at his dashcam logs. For the past month, he took a detour after work every single day, driving past his ex-girlfriend's apartment. He claimed it was just on the way. But our house is on the east side and hers is on the west side. 2 years of marriage, and his gas bills were double everyone else's. I checked the E-ZPass statements. 108 times. He drove right under her building. I confronted him with the records. He slammed his phone onto the table. Are you insane? Is driving past a building illegal now? Last week was her birthday. His car was parked in her apartment's underground garage for 4 hours. He said he was helping her move furniture. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I taped the E-ZPass statement to the fridge and put on my coat. Tomorrow, drive me back to our old college campus. To the trail where we first held hands. I had already told my lawyer to draft the divorce papers. If after walking that trail, his heart was still with me, we'd keep going. If not, then that trail would be where we parted ways. Are we going or not? What's so special about a stupid trail? Ethan sat in the driver's seat, impatiently honking the horn. In the morning, I had taped the E-ZPass statement to the fridge, asking him to take me back to our college campus. In the past, every sticky note I left on the fridge would be carefully collected by him in a wooden box. He used to say they were proof of our love. Now that billing statement only got me a sour face and an aggressive grab of his car keys. I opened the back door and sat in the back seat. Ethan looked at me through the rearview mirror. Why are you sitting in the back? Am I your chauffeur now? I said, the passenger seat is pushed too far forward. That was Haley's habit. She was petite and always liked to push the passenger seat all the way to the front. Ethan frowned. Then just adjust it back. It's not a big deal. Seeing that I didn't move, he shook his head and started the engine. The car was filled with the heavy scent of Haley's favorite perfume. My throat felt itchy and I coughed twice. Ethan snapped immediately. What's wrong with you now? I'm allergic to heavy perfumes. You forgot. Haley rode in my car yesterday to meet a client and sprayed it. Don't be so dramatic, okay? He glanced at me through the mirror, his eyes full of annoyance, and rolled down the window. The wind rushed in, diluting the scent a bit. 3 years ago, when he first bought this car, just to pick me up from work, he put charcoal bags in the car 2 weeks in advance and wiped the leather seats with lemon water every day, because I had told him that the smell of a new car made me sick. Back then, he wouldn't even hang any ornaments on the mirror. He said they would swing around and make me dizzy. Now a cute little charm Haley gave him hung right from the rearview mirror. I closed my eyes. Can you take that charm down? It's making me dizzy. Why do you have so many issues today? Ethan slammed on the brakes. I lurked forward, hitting the back of the front seat. My chest throbbed with pain. I held my chest and said nothing. Ethan glanced at me again through the mirror and adjusted the AC vents to blow cold air to the back. In the past, this tiny bit of care would have made me happy for days. Now it just felt pathetic. I looked at the barren trees outside, pulling my coat tighter. He said, Haley custom ordered that charm for me. She said it brings good luck. It's bad luck to take it down. I rubbed my aching temples. He used to drive so smoothly, slowing down long before a red light. He was always afraid that sudden braking would make me throw up. Now because he was in a hurry, he kept weaving in and out of lanes. With every sharp turn, my stomach churned. I said softly, slow down. I can't. Haley said her cat is having severe anxiety and is hiding under the bed. I need to finish this walk with you quickly so I can go help her. Doesn't she have a boyfriend? You know she just broke up and is in a terrible mood. Why are you picking a fight over a hurting girl? I let out a soft laugh and didn't reply. The car speakers suddenly blasted heavy metal music, Haley's favorite. My stomach felt worse and worse as the trees outside blurred past. I didn't even have the energy to ask him to turn it down. I need some loud music to stay awake. You just sleep, he said. In the past, as long as I was in the car, the playlist was strictly soft piano music. He said he didn't want to disturb my rest. Now even my voice annoyed him. My phone vibrated. It was a text from my lawyer. Hi Avery, the divorce settlement has been sent to your email. Please review it. Right then Ethan's phone rang too. He picked up the FaceTime call. Haley, what's wrong? Ethan, the cat still won't come out. I'm so scared. Don't worry. I'll be there as soon as I finish this routine check with Avery. A routine check. That was what he called the final walk of our 8-year relationship. Then hurry up, please. I can't do this alone. Okay, wait for me. Ethan hung up and sped up even more. I stared out the window, my eyes burning. Ethan, I called him. What now? I paused then said, nothing. Just focus on the road. We pulled into a highway rest stop, and Ethan's phone rang again. How did you cut yourself? Don't move, I'm coming right now. He put out his cigarette, threw the door open, and hopped back into the driver's seat. Ethan, I'm not in the car yet. He didn't look back. I walked to the car, and just as my hand touched the rear door handle, the car jolted forward. The sudden movement threw me to the ground. My knee slammed against the concrete, and the pain made my vision go black. Years ago, I had sprained my ankle at this very rest stop. He had carried me on his back for over a mile to the nearest clinic, cursing himself the whole way for letting me get hurt. Back then, Ethan truly treated me like his entire world. Now, I lay on the ground right next to his car, and he didn't even bother to open his door. Ethan hit the brakes, rolled down the window, and stuck his head out, frowning deeply. "Can't you watch where you're walking? Why did you run into the car?" I sat on the ground, watching blood seep through my ripped jeans. The pain made my voice shake. "You started driving suddenly." Haley cut her hand slicing peaches. "She's bleeding a lot. I have to get back." He said this while sitting comfortably in his seat, not even unbuckling his seatbelt. I looked at him, suddenly remembering when I cut my finger chopping vegetables years ago. The cut was tiny, but his face had turned pale with fear. He ran out in the middle of the night to buy bandages and antiseptic, holding me afterward and promising he'd never let me cook again. Now my knee was scraped raw, and he only saw me as an inconvenience. "Get in." He grabbed a handful of napkins and threw them to the back seat. "Are there any band-aids in the glove box?" I asked. "No." He answered too quickly. The glove box wasn't fully closed. I could see a box of waterproof band-aids inside, right next to a pair of women's flat shoes. They were all prepared for Haley. Once, the passenger seat and the glove box of this car were filled with my things. Painkillers, candies, motion sickness patches, and little things he kept just in case I needed them. Now those things were gone, replaced entirely by the existence of another woman. The space I thought securely belonged to me had been given away long ago. He was terrified Haley's feet would hurt in heels, terrified she wouldn't find a bandage for her cut, yet he wouldn't even give me a single band-aid. Maybe noticing my jeans turning red with blood, Ethan pulled a pack of wet wipes from his pocket and tossed them back. It was the brand I used to use. "Clean it up quickly. Don't ruin the leather. When we get there, go buy some ointment at a pharmacy yourself." Ethan drove incredibly fast, his phone screen constantly lighting up. It was flooded with messages from Haley on Snapchat. "Ethan, it hurts so bad. Where are you?" He held the steering wheel with one hand and typed with the other. "Almost there." He used to never touch his phone while driving. He used to say my safety was more important than anything. Now the person who mattered most was already sitting in his heart. "Avery," he suddenly said. "When we get to the campus, can you just walk that trail by yourself? Haley really needs me. I'll drop you off and you can walk it. Just call me when you're done, and we can end this." End this. 8 years of love, spoken from his mouth, felt as light as dust. "No." He glared at me through the rearview mirror, raising his voice. "Can you stop being so difficult? Ethan, you promised me. You walk this trail with me, and then we make the decision." He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. "Fine. We'll walk. I'll walk it with you. Just don't regret it." I looked down at the dried blood on my knee. I wouldn't regret it. The person who should regret this was never going to be me. We finally arrived at the campus. I pushed the door open, and the moment my foot touched the ground, the pain in my knee flared up. Ethan was already walking ahead without looking back. We ran straight into Ethan's old college roommates and a few underclassmen from our department. "Whoa, Ethan. Long time no see, man. Avery, you're here too? What happened to your leg?" Ethan said casually. "She wasn't looking where she was going and tripped." "That looks nasty. Ethan, you should be carrying her." Ethan didn't say a word. A guy next to them leaned in and smiled. "Ethan, Haley just posted on Snapchat earlier showing the cake you got her from her favorite bakery. You two have been close for so many years, your friendship really never changes." As soon as he said that, the atmosphere went cold. The others glared at him. The guy realized his mistake, looked between Ethan and me, his face turning slightly pale. I stood there, my fingers tightening around my purse strap. Ethan and Haley were childhood sweethearts. Everyone knew that. Standing next to him as his wife, I felt like an unwanted intruder. Ethan didn't bother to explain. He just flicked his cigarette ash. Haley hurt her hand, so I bought her a cake to cheer her up. He said it so naturally, as if he didn't need to hide it from me at all. "Avery, don't take it personally. Ethan has always treated Haley like a little sister." One of his friends tried to smooth things over. Ethan glanced at me. She was bored at home and insisted on coming back here to walk down memory lane. "I don't really have the time for this nonsense." The truth was, I had worked overtime for a week straight just to clear my schedule to accompany him back to our alma mater for the alumni homecoming preparation. But in his words, I became an idle housewife dragging him here to waste his time. The looks on his friends' faces shifted. Years ago, right in front of the restaurant next to this plaza, Ethan had knelt down and proposed to me in front of everyone. He had said Avery was the pride of his life. If anyone dared to disrespect me, he would fight them on the spot. Now he was the one throwing my dignity into the dirt in front of these same people. "Ethan." Haley ran up from behind and wrapped her arm around Ethan's. 5 years ago on this plaza, Ethan had yelled to the world that I was his destiny. Everyone who witnessed it remembered that day. Now he looked down at Haley, all his gentleness and patience reserved for her. Watching them stand together, I suddenly realized there was nothing left to fight for. This relationship had rotted long ago. There was no going back. Why are you here? Ethan's voice softened instantly. My hand hurt, and I was scared being alone at home. Once the cat calmed down, I took an Uber over. Ethan took her hand, inspecting it closely. How could you be so careless? Didn't I tell you to wait for me at home? But I missed you, Haley said, tugging his arm playfully. Only then did she turn her eyes to me. Oh, Avery's here too. Why is your leg still bleeding? Ethan, why didn't you take Avery to get patched up? Ethan frowned. She insisted on coming here first. People around us began to whisper. Ethan probably heard them. He let go of Haley's hand and walked toward me. He didn't ask if I was in pain. He just pulled a napkin from his pocket and handed it to me. Wipe it. I didn't take it. I stepped back. No, thank you. I glanced at the arm Haley had just held, feeling a wave of nausea. You guys catch up. I'll head to the trail first. I turned and walked away. Haley called out from behind. Avery, please don't be mad. I just wanted to come see Ethan. I didn't look back. My jeans rubbed against the raw wound on my knee with every step, sending sharp jolts of pain up my leg. But I kept walking. The trail was lined with beautiful maple trees. Now that it was autumn, the ground was covered in a thick blanket of golden leaves. 8 years ago, this was where Ethan had first taken my hand. I walked to a bench halfway down the trail and sat down. I pulled a worn sketchbook from my bag. I had kept this book safe for years, terrified of ruining it. Inside were drawings of Ethan and journal entries of our years together. Once during a storm, Ethan was so afraid the sketchbook would get wet that he held it tightly against his chest under his jacket. He ended up with a high fever and was bedridden for 3 days. Back then, he said this book held our beginning, and it was more precious than his own life. I touched the cover where he had written, Avery's personal diary. A tear fell onto my hand. Over the years, whenever things got hard, I would look at these drawings and tell myself that Ethan used to love me. But as I flipped through the faded pages now, I knew the Ethan who cherished me was dead. Footsteps sounded behind me. Ethan walked up, with Haley trailing beside him. Haley was holding 2 cups of hot coffee. Avery, have something warm to drink. No thanks. Ethan frowned. Just take it. Haley stood in line for a long time to get this. Haley stepped forward to hand it to me, but she tripped on a root, and the hot coffee splashed directly toward me. I dodged to the side. The hot coffee splashed entirely over my open sketchbook. My book. I lunged to grab it. But Ethan grabbed my arm first, pulling me back. What are you doing? Can't you see Haley got burned by the hot coffee? He grabbed Haley's hand to check it. Her skin was barely pink, but her eyes were already brimming with tears. I'm so sorry, Avery. It was an accident. I just wanted to bring you some coffee. I shook off Ethan's grip and knelt to pick up the sketchbook. The paper was soaked through, the edges turning to mush at my touch. The sketched face of Ethan was smeared with brown liquid, completely unrecognizable. It's just a cheap sketchbook. Do you have to make such a big deal out of it? He walked over, snatched the ruined sketchbook from my hands, and threw it carelessly onto the wooden bench. Haley is wearing a white dress. How is she going to meet clients later with a dirty dress? Use this book to cover the wet bench first. With that, he guided Haley to sit down. Haley glanced at the book, didn't say a word, and sat right on top of my precious sketchbook. I stood there, staring at Ethan. The book he had risked a fever to protect from the rain was now nothing more than a cushion to protect Haley's dress. The man I loved for 8 years had personally stomped our past into the mud. At this very moment, the pain in my heart vanished. It just felt completely empty. Seeing the expression on my face, Ethan's tone softened slightly. Fine, I'll buy you a couple of designer bags tomorrow to make up for the book. Satisfied? I used to wonder how he would apologize if he ever broke my heart. I never imagined he would try to pay off our memories with a couple of handbags. That single sentence burned away the last thread of my hesitation. Ethan. I unzipped my bag, pulled out the divorce papers I had printed at the campus library, and thrust them in front of him. We finished the walk. Sign it. Ethan froze. His eyes darted from the document to my face. Avery, are you done throwing a tantrum? I literally just used your sketchbook as a seat cover. I am not throwing a tantrum. I looked him dead in the eye. Ethan, I don't love you anymore. The silence that settled over the maple trail was different from the quiet of the car. It was vast, cold, and punctuated only by the dry, paper-like scraping of fallen leaves sliding across the concrete of the pathway. Ethan stared at the divorce papers in my hand. The white sheets of standard 20-pound bond paper looked clinical, almost blue in the gray, flat light of the autumn afternoon. His name, Ethan Charles Vance, was printed in neat, dark black ink at the top of the first page, right next to mine. Avery, he said. His voice was no longer loud, but it had a hard rattling vibration that sounded like a motor starting to fail. This isn't funny. You're bringing legal documents to a college homecoming? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this would be if someone from my office saw us? Beside him, Haley did not move. She remained seated on the wooden bench, her white silk dress pressed flat against my ruined sketchbook. Ethan, she murmured, her hand reaching up to touch his elbow. Maybe. I should go back to the car. I don't want to get in the middle of a fight between you and Avery. But she didn't stand up. She sat there, her weight grinding the wet, coffee-soaked sheets of my past 8 years into the rough pine slats of the bench. Stay here, Haley, Ethan said, not looking at her. His eyes remained locked on mine, his brow furrowing until the skin between his eyebrows looked like gray stone. Avery's just doing this to get a reaction. She's been passive-aggressive all day. It's because of the rest stop. I told you, I didn't mean to start driving before you were in. I am not throwing a tantrum, Ethan, I said. My voice was very quiet, almost lost beneath the wind through the maple trees. And I don't care about the rest stop anymore. I don't care about the E-ZPass bills. I don't even care about the sketchbook under Haley's dress. I took a step back, the movement sending a sharp, hot needle of pain up my torn knee. I didn't flinch. I brought the papers because I wanted to see if there was anything left of the man who spent 3 days in bed with a fever because he held my drawings under his coat, I said, pointing to the bench. But there isn't. The only thing left in this car is a chauffeur who doesn't like my voice. I set the papers down on the wet grass at his feet. The lawyer's office is on 3rd Avenue, I said. He has the digital copies of my bank statements from before the marriage. I'm not asking for the house on the east side. I'm not asking for your car. I just want my name back. I turned on my heel and walked away. Avery, Ethan yelled behind me. His leather shoes clicked rapidly on the asphalt as he took 3 quick steps to follow. But then he stopped. I heard Haley's voice, high, thin, and slightly breathless. Ethan, my hand is starting to blister. I think the coffee was hotter than I thought. The footsteps behind me ceased. I kept walking, my boots leaving small, dark circles of blood on the yellow leaves as I made my way toward the campus gate. The house on the east side was quiet when I returned. It was a 3-story townhome we had bought during our first year of marriage. The living room was large, with high windows that looked out over the river, and the floors were covered in thick, ivory wool rugs that Ethan had personally selected because he knew I liked to walk barefoot in the winter. Now the room felt as cold and sterile as a furniture gallery. I didn't pack everything. When you live with someone for 8 years, your lives become tangled like the roots of the maple trees on the campus trail. Your books are on their shelves. Your winter coats are hanging next to their suits. Your spare keys are on their ring. I only packed 1 suitcase. Inside went my clothes from before the marriage, the simple sweaters, the dark denim jeans, and the worn leather boots I had worn during our college years. I didn't touch the designer dresses Ethan had bought me for his company's winter galas, nor the diamond earrings that sat in the velvet-lined tray of my vanity. I went into the study. My work desk was in the corner, next to the window. I was a senior landscape designer for a local firm, a job I had nearly lost twice during the past year, because I kept leaving early to cook Ethan's favorite meals or to drive Haley to the clinic when her anxiety flared up. On the desk sat a small wooden box. I opened it. Inside were dozens of yellow sticky notes, their edges curled and faded from time. Avery, don't forget your umbrella today. It's going to rain at 3. I left some honey lemon tea in the thermos. Drink it before your presentation. I love you. I'll be waiting at the subway exit. They were all written in Ethan's neat, slightly slanted handwriting. I stared at the notes for a long time. The paper felt dry, almost fragile, like the autumn leaves outside. I didn't throw them away. I didn't burn them. I simply closed the lid of the box, left it sitting in the center of the clean, polished mahogany desk, and laid my wedding band on top of it. The ring was platinum, simple, with a tiny microscopic scratch near the inside, engraving where I had dropped it on the marble floor of our honeymoon suite. I picked up my suitcase, walked down the stairs, and closed the heavy oak door of the townhome behind me. The click of the latch was the only sound in the empty street. For the first month after I left, Ethan did not call. I rented a small, 1-bedroom apartment in the industrial district of the city. It had high concrete ceilings, exposed brick walls, and a single tall window that looked out over a gravel yard where the local train line ran. It was noisy, smelly, and the air drafty, but it was mine. I spent my evenings sitting at my new desk, my fingers moving across my drawing tablet as I worked on a new landscape design proposal for the city's waterfront park. It was a $40 million municipal project, the largest contract my firm had ever bid on. If we won, my position as lead director would be secured for the next 5 years. At 10 p.m. on a Thursday, my phone finally buzzed. It was a text from Ethan's personal assistant, a young man named Clara whom he had hired last winter. Clara. Hi Avery, Mr. Vance asked me to check if you have the spare key to his safe deposit box. He's trying to access some old property deeds and can't find his copy. I stared at the screen, a faint, dry taste of copper returning to my tongue. Avery. I left the spare key in the wooden box on my desk, next to the ring. Clara. Oh, Mr. Vance said the desk was empty. My thumb hovered over the screen. I didn't reply. I knew why the desk was empty. Ethan had probably cleared the box and the ring away the first night he came home, throwing them into the bottom drawer of his dresser so he wouldn't have to look at the reminders of his failure while he was hosting Haley's friends in the living room. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. This time, it was Ethan's direct number. I pressed the answer button. Avery. His voice came through the receiver sounding thin and digitized, stripped of the warm, resonant timbre he usually used when he was in the car. Where is the key? Clara said you told her it was in the box, but I checked. There's nothing there. I left it there, Ethan. I said, my voice carrying the flat, level rhythm of a dry logistics report. If it's not there, perhaps Haley moved it when she was looking for a place to put her cat's medication. A long silence fell over the line. Why are you still being like this? He asked suddenly, his voice dropping into that quiet, dangerous register. The homecoming was 3 weeks ago. I've given you your space. I haven't commented on the fact that you're living in a drafty warehouse downtown. But the lawyers are sending me emails every day, Avery. They're talking about asset division. They're talking about a trial. There is no trial, Ethan, I said. I signed the relinquishment forms yesterday. You keep the East Side house. You keep the car. I only want the premarital savings. Why? He hissed, his grip on his phone sounding so tight I could hear the faint creak of his leather case. Why are you throwing away everything we built? For 8 years, Avery. We've been together for 8 years. You're going to let a cheap sketchbook and a few detours destroy our marriage. The sketchbook wasn't cheap, Ethan, I said softly. It was the only thing you saved from the rain. And the detours weren't just past her building. They were past my life. I hung up, put the phone on silent, and went back to my design. The municipal presentation for the waterfront park was held at the City Design Gallery in mid-November. The gallery was a large, high-ceilinged space with concrete pillars, white brick walls, and floor-to-ceiling glass windows that looked out over the Gray River. The room was crowded with city officials, local journalists, and representatives from the top design firms in the state. My firm's display was in the center of the hall. We had created a massive, three-dimensional model of the proposed park, complete with miniature maple trees, wooden benches, and a winding gravel trail that traced the edge of the water. Avery, this is spectacular, my director, a gray-haired woman named Eleanor, said, patting my shoulder. The city planner was just looking at the trail design. He loved the detail of the maple leaf paving stones. Thank you, Eleanor, I said, offering her a warm, genuine smile. I was wearing a simple, tailored black suit and a pair of dark leather boots. My hair was tied back in a neat, professional knot, and my skin looked bright, clear of the permanent gray exhaustion that had defined my final days in the East Side townhome. As I turned to adjust one of the model's miniature benches, a commotion at the entrance of the gallery caught my attention. 3 people walked in. First came Richard Smith, the senior partner of the city's largest engineering firm, and Ethan's primary corporate client. Beside him walked Ethan, dressed in a bespoke navy suit that fitted his broad shoulders perfectly, his hair styled back with his usual cool boy elegance. And on his arm was Haley. She was wearing a long, white wool coat that looked identical to the one she had worn on the homecoming trail, her fingers clutching a designer clutch that Ethan had probably bought her to apologize for the coffee spill. Ethan, Richard Smith said, gesturing toward our display. You should look at this. The landscape firm has some interesting ideas for the structural grading near the pier. It might affect our foundation design. Ethan walked over to the model. The moment his eyes scanned the winding trail, the miniature maple trees, and the tiny wooden benches, his face went completely pale. His hand, which had been resting on Haley's waist, slowly dropped to his side. He looked up, his dark eyes locking onto mine across the model table. Avery, he whispered. Good evening, Mr. Vance, I said, my voice carrying that same quiet, professional calm that had always been my anchor. Mr. Smith, welcome to the presentation. Avery, you designed this? Richard Smith asked, looking between me and the model in surprise. I had no idea you were the lead director for Eleanor's firm. Ethan's always told me his wife was, well, that she preferred to stay at home and manage the household. Eleanor let out a soft, dry laugh. Avery's been the backbone of our creative team for 5 years, Richard. We would have lost the Northern contract Last winter if she hadn't stayed up for 3 days straight to finish the environmental grading. Ethan's jaw moved, but no sound came out. He stared at me, at the tailored black suit, the clean lines of my profile, the quiet, unyielding authority that had made every city official in the room listen to my design presentation. For 2 years, he had treated me like an idle housewife, an inconvenience who dragged him to college campuses to waste his time. He had believed that. Because I didn't scream, because I didn't make scenes when he drove past Haley's apartment, I was a quiet, passive creature who would always be waiting in the East Side house when he returned from his detours. Now he realized the truth. The woman who had massaged his temples when he was stressed, the one who had kept his lemon water ready every morning, had never been small. She had simply been holding his ladder, too busy keeping him from falling to climb her own mountain. Avery, please, Ethan said, taking a step toward me, his voice dropping to a low, raw whisper that didn't carry to the rest of the crowd. We need to talk. Just 5 minutes. The presentation is about to begin, Mr. Vance, I said, looking him dead in the eye. And I believe your client is waiting. The collapse of Ethan's company did not start with a lawsuit. It started with a simple, anonymous email sent to Richard Smith's corporate office. I sat in my small, sunlit apartment downtown, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand, reading the news on my drawing tablet. Vance Engineering dropped from municipal waterfront project due to financial discrepancies and conflict of interest. According to the article, an internal audit of Ethan's firm had revealed that over $300,000 of corporate design funds had been routed through a shell company registered under Haley's name. The funds, which had been billed to the city as preliminary survey costs, had actually been used to pay off Haley's personal credit cards and to secure the lease on her West Side apartment. Even worse, the GPS logs and E-ZPass records I had taped to the fridge had been subpoenaed by the city's ethics board to prove that Ethan had been using company vehicles for non-business detours to Haley's building while billing the mileage to the municipal account. A quiet knock sounded on my door. I didn't stand up immediately. I set my cup down, walked over to the entryway, and opened the door. It was Ethan. He wasn't wearing his bespoke navy suit or his expensive leather shoes. He was wearing a simple, dark green sweater that looked loose and wrinkled on his shrunken frame, his hair unwashed, his face gray and hollowed out by 2 weeks of sleeplessness. Avery, he said, his voice a dry, rattling whisper. Hello, Ethan, I said, keeping my hand on the edge of the door. She lied to me, he whispered, his eyes wide, wild with a sudden, suffocating panic. The cat, the asthmatic cat. She didn't even have a cat. Avery. She'd rented it from a local animal shelter for 2 days just to have an excuse to call me over when you were at work. He took a step closer, his hands reaching out toward me, his fingers trembling. And the cut finger? The one at the rest stop? It was a fake blood capsule she'd bought from a theater shop downtown. She'd been planning the whole thing, Avery. She knew we were going to the campus. She wanted to make sure I'd leave you at the rest stop so she could see how much power she had over me. I looked at his wet, pale face. I saw the 8 years we had spent together. I saw the night he had knelt in the snow to propose to me. I saw the empty townhome on the east side, the scent of her perfume in his car, and the sketchbook turning to mush on the wet wooden bench. I know, Ethan, I said softly. You knew? I knew Haley was manipulative, I said. But that's not why I left you, Ethan. I left you because you chose to believe her. You chose to start driving at the rest stop. You chose to use my sketchbook as a seat cover. You chose her lies. Because they made you feel like a hero, while my reality made you feel like a husband. I slowly began to close the door. Avery, please, Ethan cried, his hand slamming against the wood to stop me. I'll sign the papers. I'll give you the East Side house. I'll sell the car. Just don't leave me alone in this room. It smells like her perfume, Avery. I've scrubbed the walls with lemon water 5 times, but I can't get the smell out. The smell isn't on the walls, Ethan, I said, my voice as quiet as the winter wind through the concrete yard. It's in your head. I pushed the door shut, turned the lock, and walked back to my desk. 3 years later, the waterfront park had officially opened to the public. It was a beautiful, crisp autumn afternoon. The leaves on the maple trees had turned a brilliant golden red, falling slowly like dry paper onto the wet concrete of the pathway. I sat on a wooden bench halfway down the main trail, a cup of hot tea in my hand. Beside me on the bench lay a brand new, clean leather sketchbook. On the first page was a simple, elegant drawing of the river, the water wide, endless, and completely free of the shadows of the past. A tall, quiet man with dark hair and a green backpack walked up the path, holding a fresh batch of warm cinnamon rolls in a paper bag. He had a pencil tucked behind his ear, his fingers carrying a faint trace of charcoal dust from our latest design review. It was Marcus, our firm's senior structural engineer, the man who had worked beside me for 2 years, holding the flashlight during our late-night site surveys, making sure I never had to walk 3 steps behind him. "The wind is picking up, Avery," Marcus said, sitting down beside me and pulling a wool blanket over our knees. "Are you cold?" I looked down at the sketch, then at the golden maples, and finally at his warm, genuine smile. "No," I said, leaning my head against his shoulder. "I'm very warm." Across the river, the high-rise towers of the east side were starting to glow with the first yellow lights of the evening, but I didn't look at them. I closed my sketchbook, took a sip of my warm tea, and let the clean, cold wind off the water carry the last dry leaves of the past away into the endlessly beautiful horizon ahead.